Hey guys, Daniel back with Air Down. We're going to pick right up on this knuckle here where we left off. And in the background here you'll see some axle vise stuff for my Sterling 10.5. We're not going to work on that because it's too loud to mess with the grinder. I've got to do some fitment stuff. But for now, we can play with this as it's a little quieter maybe. And I actually made this weld, and I'll show it to you probably now. But I kind of feel like we want to really penetrate this iron, or it's not even iron, it's cast steel. I feel like we really want to penetrate this knuckle well. I'm just watching this weld to see if it forms a crack or anything. And then I watched this weld crack all the way across the face, and I heard it and I caught it all on video, which I'll play now. Yeah, this angle right here. Oh no! Don't crack. So here's a close-up. I don't know if you can see the cracks in there or not. Basically, it starts here, runs around on the casting side, kind of goes high, and then just dips right across the middle. But the cracking and the I didn't get along well with each other thing, that tells me, coupled with the drilling out of this tie rod end taper. And I don't know if I've ever worked with cast steel before, but this isn't really behaving like steel. It's behaving more like iron. That tells me that this knuckle is iron. So now I definitively believe that these are iron, and because of that, it's going to take special welding practices to make this work, which I will show you. There's several correct-ish ways. This is going to be probably the best way that any normal person can do it. So I guess to get down in it, first thing I want to do is take this bolt out and see if I can't finish cracking this piece of steel off this piece of iron. And if that's not the case, then we'll have to grind out this bead and separate the two, and then refinish the surfaces, fix any repairs. I've heard stories now that I've researched it a little more of these welds pulling pieces of the knuckle off. Worst case scenario, I buy a new knuckle and I learn something. Don't want to do that, but it's not the end of the world. So let's get this bolt off. I'm going to thread this back on just a little bit so I can tap it a little with a hammer. Here's to hoping just a light tap gets this out. Well, it's starting to move, but I don't really want to beat on this. It's also super loud. So let me think. What am I going to do? That probably woke my kids up. Obviously this isn't just falling off on its own, so let's see if I can't just quietly this time tap this heister arm off this freaking knuckle. Well, it's actually working, it's actually moving, so there we go. Ugh, look at that, it did just crack all the way through. Probably just right off the bat. I didn't have to hit that hard at all. Heister arm's good, that's the expensive part, so that's good. I'll just lop this weld off when I can make noise again. But you can see, I just chipped a piece up. You can see where what people said is true. Where the weld dug into the iron, they kind of fatigued it. This spot here and this spot up here have both chipped pieces out of the knuckle. And my plan is to use that that nickel iron welding rod that Blue Demon has, or ESOB has it too. But that's the plan. Shave all this off of both pieces, knock out any bits that were bad, clean it up real nice, maybe grind into it some more, and then put it back together. Use the proper wire, use a preheat to 350 or more, and come through and just make the whole part real nice, and either dump this whole thing in a bucket of sand or wrap it in welding blankets. So to make decent use of my evening out here, since I can't make the noise it takes to grind that off, the last thing I can do is pop one of these ball joints out. I still want to keep this upper ball joint because I will be welding about up to here on it. And I don't want this pocket to warp. I think it will stand the best chance of staying straight if I keep this ball joint in. Okay, I've got the knuckle stop post clamped in the vise here. We'll see how successful that is here in a moment. Well, the map gas started working very violently and immediately. Yikes. Well, if it doesn't push easy from here on out, I'm pretty much just gonna quit, because I can't keep making these loud ass bangs out here. Yeah, I gotta quit. Woo-wee! I just remembered I've got to take this piece of casting flash off of here. Oh, I didn't want to grind, and now I'm having to anyway, so. Whee! Okay, well, I'll just do it. Okay, I can't really explain my need to tighten big bolts down so much. Probably isn't necessary. Probably just needed to get it tight, but I just cannot help myself. When I see a big bolt, I have to tighten it. Alright, I'm going to tap this down against this edge just to make sure it's perfectly in there. Let's pan the outside. Well, just like that, we've got some nice welds in there. Back that up a little bit in case it didn't focus. Those are some great welds. I'll take those. Okay, at this point, the knuckle part, the steel part of the knuckle is all welded. All I have to do is weld this junk to the actual knuckle. And I've ordered some Nicore wire, which is a nickel iron combination wire that's designed to weld steel to cast iron. And it says you should still preheat it, but it's a precaution, not a must. I'll still do it, and I bought a welding blanket to wrap it all in when I'm done welding it too, to sort of help that heat treating. And I'm also going to needle scale all the joints as I go. And all of that together should make the best knuckle weld on the planet. So, well, the last time I left off with this project, this was bolted onto here, and I had just finished welding all of these welds. So now I've taken it off, and off camera I did a little smoothing on this cast piece with a flat disc to really knock down any imperfections and impurities for the welding process with this. Now that I know that this is cast, it's going to be a pain in the butt to weld. So with this off, real quick, I'm just going to come in here and do the back side, since this plate right here was responsible for a lot of the force in this. If it wasn't good enough before, it is good enough now. I said it before, but now it's actually true. The steel part of this arm is done. All I have left to do is weld it to the knuckle. You can kind of see, well, I'm going to have to do like a lap joint here. And you can kind of see I got a nice spot to weld everywhere except for right here. So I'm going to just mark that out right there to lop off some of that. So that'll fit better. The rest of it all looks like it fits fine. I also beveled this edge all along here from the top all the way down, so this material right here would really sink in and really bite into this iron, because it's thick all along here. So the bevel just gives me better penetration from this to that. And I beveled the other one as well and cleaned up the other knuckle with the grinder as well. This is the other arm, the first arm I did. And I don't know if I'm going to put this in the video or not, but I screwed up for a second in my little brain, and I thought, hey, this plate should be welded on last. That way, I can weld all of these guys directly to the knuckle in here where they meet the knuckle, and then I'll come through and slip this plate in and weld it in last, and then I will have welded all of this in here, and all of this out here, and all of the stuff around. And then I cut the plate off because I was like, screw it, I'll get a new one from Artec. They were really nice. They sent me one for free despite my stupidity. I even told them, I was like, hey, don't send it to me for free. I really pooched it, but they sent it anyway. Realized real quickly, this keys in right here on this guy. You can't slip this plate in after you've welded this. It can only go in before you weld it. So when I got the piece from Artec, I just welded it right back into where it used to be. So retard moment, sorry Artec, my bad. But that's what happens when you work late, like way past midnight in the garage. This piece has a little bit more fitment issues than the last one, so we're going to take a good portion of this off, and I'm going to take a whole lot of this off. Okay, so I barely have to touch that one, but I will have to touch this one a lot. But that's why we come in here and we do these fitment tests. We can trim up the piece, that way we're not, screwing around trying to weld and it's coming over and it's not penetrating into the knuckle. That way we get full penetration into this wall of the knuckle. So not everybody does these fitment things, but it's nice. I really like that I go through and do that. It takes extra time, but you get extra reward. So, all right, this should be the final part in this whole saga. Off camera, I trimmed these edges to fit well on these ribs, I guess, on the knuckle. I've got it all bolted up and tightened down. I've got it all aligned how I want, and I've got all of the surfaces cleaned and prepped for welding. So step one is going to be tack weld. I got a new toy. This is the Lincoln Viking 3350, the Mojo edition graphics. But I was using my old helmet with my TIG welder, and it just wasn't, sometimes it just wasn't blocking the light. It'll kick on if I look up at the lights, but it won't kick on sometimes when I'm TIG welding. And it made for some not so fun eyeball stuff. Luckily, there's enough filtering on those just naturally that you're not going to get hurt, but it's just like, okay, well now I got to take a 10-minute break so I can see again. All right, let's get it on. Okay, with this tack welded now, I'm going to heat it up with that MAP gas torch. This takes forever, so I'm just going to film a little bit of it. I've been trying to be a little bit more intentional with the filming so I don't have so much data to chew through at the end of the day. I want to get this to at least 250. More is okay, but 250 helps me weld without overheating the cast. So right about 250, then start welding, start needle scaling, and then wire wheel after that. No! No! Don't go into the light! Come back to me! Oh! She's going. There's nothing I can do about it. Let's just use her to the last drop. That's what she would want. Do 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 do. Dead. Aha! 240, 236, 240, 270, 230, 180. Jeez. 205, 254, 273, 281, 303. Jeez. All right. So not that great at even heating, but I'll get it. Okay, I want to be entirely ready for when the moment comes because we're close now. And I don't really want to lollygag. Okay, it is time. Let's run our first bead. doing there for a while is I got some porosity on the backside, and it was causing me all kinds of not good problems. I'm not sure where that porosity came from, but maybe when I did the tack welds I did something wrong. I don't really know. I've got more porosity, it's back again. What the hell? Oh, it is so totally porous. What the f is happening? All right. We finished it off without porosity. How about that? Boy, that is some real world drama if there ever was. But I came out looking like almost as if I never even stopped welding this bead, so I'm happy. So what I'm trying to do here is I'm just trying to keep it up to temperature, up around that 250. And that's because I don't want this to cool, because it's going to cool unevenly. This will cool faster than that, and that might lead to cracking. So I'm trying to keep everything up to about the same temperature. The next step is to wire wheel everything. Well, I wanted to pull you out here and show you the welds. These are heavily needle scaled and wire wheeled, by the way. And this one, I should have stopped a little further back, but I kept having that porosity. So I kept having to take the weld further and further and further this way. But the important thing is I stopped right at the end of that arch. You didn't want to stick these two pieces together that are really close, because there's probably supposed to be a little flexibility there and you don't want it to develop a crack. So I came down a little further than I wanted to, chasing out porosity, but I got the porosity out. And I still stopped at just the right spot, so that's all well and good. That Nicore wire welds so weird, and I've just now started to get used to it. The things I've learned are the metal wants to pile up on itself, the weld material. So you have to wiggle the torch back and forth. See how it wants to pile up on the edges? That's not because there's porosity and the bead is sinking in. It's because I wiggled the torch back and forth and it piled up on the edges. And also you gotta run it really fast, the wire speed. And yeah, this last bit's pretty great right here, that last little bead. Anyway, that's it welded up. But I have to run the 30 thou setting with the 35 thou Nicore wire just to get it to run right, because it just wants so much wire, otherwise it can't run stable. So it's just interesting. I just went ahead and just did another big one right over the top of it, and I think that this knuckle is going to be epic forever and ever. Notice I didn't weld this tube ever, this upright, to this spot here. This bolt and nut are more than capable of holding that in place. And I feel like this little gap in here, if you weld here too, with all the weird heat and stuff, it'll pull it funny, and it'll introduce cracking in here. So because of the crazy leverage, so I figure If you leave this free and then just weld that basically U shape around the knuckle, this is the best way you could probably do it, and then this has just enough degree of freedom to not crack anything. I'm gonna give it one last heat, back up to 250, and then we're gonna wrap it in a welding blanket. Okay. This is the ridiculously small amount of wire I had left. That's why every time I was getting porosity, I was starting to get quite frustrated because I knew my time was basically up. So that's like one more small bead. I can't believe it came down to the wire like this, but that's incredible. So crazy. Now I've got this one in a heat blanket, or in a welding blanket, cooling down slowly. That slow cooling just helps everything to cool at the same rate, and that way cracks aren't as likely to propagate. This is the one I did last night. I kind of wanted to knock one out and make sure I wasn't making an ass out of myself before I shouted it to the world, but same basic story, obviously. Just wanted to kind of show off the welds a little bit, and the show off how weird that Nicore looks when you run it. And I got a little funky business right here that I may try. I don't know if you can see that, a little bit of holes. I may try and carve those out and then just fill it with a quick tack weld. We'll see. I don't really feel like there's much porosity hiding behind that. I feel like it's just a little bit, but you can see right here, this is where I should have stopped on the last one if I didn't have that porosity issue. So I just kept running it till about here to fill up that gap and chase the porosity. But as long as I stopped before I started welding this edge down into that bit there, I think it's all gonna be fine. So just because I said I would, I ground this down and ran a little bead right over the top of it. That's where I ended, so there's like a little divot there. But I just ground right through the surface and the porosity was already gone, so I just kind of filled it back in. No problem, no real porosity there. And then after that little repair, that is how much Nicore wire I have left. It's just so ridiculous. It's kind of awesome, actually. But I would have been really pissed off if it just ran out mid-weld on like a more important weld. Well, it's taken me months to do this, but I finally got everything aligned and did it. But that's knuckle welding. That's some of my tips and perspectives on why this is designed the way it is and why I welded it the way I did. And hopefully that's useful. Hopefully that induces some thought with some other people. And hopefully a lot more people try to use this Nicore wire, because I think it's the hot ticket. The last thing you want is this failing on the road. So anyway, hope you liked this video. If you did, please subscribe. Give me a thumbs up, ring that little bell, and stay tuned, because we're going to do more stuff just like this. Build that big family crawler. But until my next video, peace out, go rock crawling.